Live so that when you look at me, you feel no shame. These are the words Princess Diana left for William 25 years after her passing. William, the heir to the throne, thought he had buried his emotions, but his mother is still watching. One letter, fragile yet powerful, awakens in him compassion, truth, and a yearning for freedom. He does what no one dared, folds the royal speech, holds up his mother's letter before millions, and announces the Diana Foundation for Kindness and Justice, breaking from tradition, breaking from the crown. Charles is furious. Camilla whispers. Kate sheds tears. England is divided. On one side, the past of his mother. On the other, the future of the throne. And William must choose. A light drizzle falls on London's cobblestone streets as if the sky itself is holding its breath for the silent shifts unfolding within Buckingham Palace. In 2025, England stands at an invisible crossroads. King Charles III, though still on the throne, has become a faint shadow of his former self. His health is failing, and his rare public appearances only underscore the fragility of his reign. The media, like hungry vultures, no longer trail Charles. Their gaze has shifted to one man, Prince William, the heir to the throne, the one the nation hopes will bring a new dawn. In the study at Clarence House, William sits at an ancient oak desk, the light from a crystal chandelier casting shadows on his face, a face etched with resolve, bearing his father's sternness and the deep, soulful eyes his mother, Princess Diana, once cherished. At 43, William is no longer the young man who walked in his mother's shadow. He is now the heart of the monarchy, managing royal affairs with near mechanical precision. Everything follows Charles's plan: audiences, overseas tours, pre-written speeches. William carries out each task without complaint, like a machine programmed for perfection. William's family, Kate, George, Charlotte, and Louis, appears as the perfect royal portrait. They step out in carefully chosen outfits, radiant smiles for the cameras, hand in hand at charity events. But everything is calculated, constrained by ceremony and tradition. Their embraces, though, warm, lack spontaneity. In the rare moments away from the cameras, William senses an invisible distance. Kate, with her gentle but resolute smile, often reminds him, "We don't just live for ourselves, Will. We live for the entire kingdom." Kate, now England's new icon, is beloved as the epitome of perfection, elegant, devoted, and steadfast. She walks in the glow Diana left behind, but in her own way, not impulsive, not rebellious, but reliably stable. Meanwhile, Camilla the Queen plays a discreet, coordinating role behind the scenes. She appears rarely, but her every word and decision carries the weight of someone who understands the monarchy's machinery. Camilla is not a warm stepmother, but she's the one William turns to when he needs advice on how to keep everything from falling apart. William is seen as the ideal heir. The public adores him, the media praises him, and royal advisors believe he will be the perfect king. But in his heart, there's a void he dares not face. He was once the boy holding his mother's hand, racing through Kensington Palace's corridors, listening to her whispers about compassion and truth. Diana, with her radiant smile and vulnerable heart, was his guiding light. But now William realizes he's slowly lost that voice. He has become more like Charles than he thought, serious, distant, and caged in the glass prison of duty. One evening, as the lights in Clarence House dim, William stands by a window, gazing into the dark garden. He clutches a sapphire ring, his mother's final gift, the one thing he always keeps close. "What would you think of me now, Mum?" he wonders, but no answer comes. Out there, England awaits him, a future king, a husband, a father. But within him, there's only the silence of a son lost in his own path. The storm, though, not yet here, is brewing, and William, unaware, is about to face a letter that will change everything. The morning at Clarence House carries a deceptive calm, as if the entire palace is holding its breath for something momentous. Pale sunlight filters through silk curtains, illuminating the wooden desk where William sits holding an old envelope. The creamy paper has yellowed, its edges worn, but the handwritten words on it, Diana's graceful slanted script, make his heart tighten. "To William, my beloved son," it reads, with a note from Diana's private lawyer beneath, "to be opened when her son is preparing to ascend the throne." William received the letter this morning from a courier, an elderly man with a discreet gaze who said only, "This is the princess's final wish." For hours, William has sat here, the envelope untouched before him, like a door to a past he's unsure he's brave enough to open. Diana has been gone for nearly 3 decades, but the pain of losing her remains a wound that never healed. He wonders, what does she want from me now, after all these years? Finally, with trembling hands, William opens the envelope. The rustle of paper echoes in the quiet room, like a whisper from the past. Inside is a letter written on Diana's personal stationery adorned with a small lily emblem in the corner. He begins to read, and his mother's voice, gentle, warm, yet powerful, seems to resonate in his mind. My dearest William, when you read these words, I hope you become the man I always believed you would be. But I also know you carry the weight of the monarchy on your shoulders, and it may make you forget your heart. I lived in that palace, smiled for the crowds, did what was expected. But my darling, fame is not everything. Compassion, truth, and the courage to choose what's right, these are what make life meaningful. William pauses, his breath heavy. Diana's words pierce his soul, awakening a part of him he'd buried long ago. He closes his eyes and memories flood back like a tidal wave. He sees himself a 10-year-old boy holding his mother's hand in a London hospital corridor. Diana, in a simple blue dress, kneels by a patient's bedside, listening to their story with sparkling eyes. Always look into people's eyes, William, she told him. That's how you see their soul. Young William nodded, not fully understanding, but feeling the strength in her tenderness. Another memory surfaces, Diana sitting with him in Kensington Palace's drawing room before a tour. I go to help others, but I always come back for you and Harry, she said, ruffling his hair. Promise me you'll never forget what matters. William opens his eyes, silent tears rolling down his cheeks. He continues reading, each word like a dagger piercing the wall of duty he's built around himself. You'll face difficult choices, William. The throne will demand you do what's expected, but your heart will tell you what's right. If you must choose between those paths, choose the one that lets you look at me without shame. I love you forever. The final words tremble on the page as if Diana wrote them through tears. William folds the letter, but her words echo relentlessly in his mind. He stands walking to the window, gazing at the garden where he once played with her. The sapphire ring on his finger glimmers in the sunlight, a reminder that Diana is still here, if only in memory. He thinks of his life now, the pre-written speeches, the forced smiles for cameras, the decisions that never truly feel his own. He's done everything Charles wanted, Kate expected, the kingdom demanded. But now his mother's letter has stirred a question he can't ignore. Who am I living for? The room remains silent, but in William's heart a storm has begun. Diana's letter is more than a relic of the past. It's a call, a challenge, and perhaps a chance to rediscover himself. The evening at Clarence's house carries an unusual stillness, broken only by the steady ticking of a pendulum clock in the drawing room. The fireplace's glow dances on the ornate wallpaper, casting light on William's face, a face heavy with introspection, his eyes still haunted by his mother's letter. He sits in an armchair, the letter resting on the coffee table before him, a tangible link to the past. Across from him, Kate, in a simple beige sweater, watches her husband quietly. She senses his unease but doesn't yet grasp its source. William takes a deep breath, his voice hoarse, as he breaks the silence. Kate, I need to talk to you about something. About my mother. He slides the letter toward her, his fingers brushing the paper as if it's fragile. She left this letter. It arrived today, just as she intended. I don't know what to make of it. Kate picks up the letter, her eyes scanning Diana's handwritten words. She reads slowly, her brows furrowing slightly at the passages about compassion and the choice between fame and conscience. When she finishes, she sets it down, looking at William with the calm he's always admired, but this time it feels distant. Your mother's words are beautiful, she says, her voice gentle but cautious. But I'm not sure what she expects you to do with them. I mean now, in our situation. William leans forward, his hands clasped tightly as if to hold back his emotions. She wants me to remember the throne isn't everything. She talks about choosing what's right, living true to my heart. I've read it over and over, and Kate, I'm not sure I'm doing the right thing. His voice trembles with rare vulnerability. I feel like I'm living Dad's life, not mine, not hers. Kate falls silent, her gaze shifting from William to the fire. When she speaks, her voice carries a sharp resolve. Well, I understand how you feel. I do. Your mother was an extraordinary woman, and her words, they touch the heart. But we don't live in her world anymore. The monarchy is on the edge. Your father grows weaker every day the public is watching us, and if we waver, if we let emotions take over, everything could collapse. She pauses, meeting his eyes. You're the heir. You're not just her son. You're the future of this kingdom. Kate's words cut like a blade, not because they're cruel, but because they're painfully true in a way William doesn't want to admit. He stands walking to the fireplace, his hands bracing the marble mantel. So what do you want me to do? Kate, forget the letter. Forget what she lived for. She didn't want me to just smile and wave for the crowds. She wanted me to change things, to do something meaningful. Kate rises too, stepping closer, but keeping a measured distance. I'm not saying you should forget her, but you can't let the past pull you away from the present. We have 3 children, Will. We have a duty to George, Charlotte, and Louis. If we keep chasing old ideals who will hold the future together, her voice softens, but her resolve remains. Do you think I've never wanted to do things differently? But I've learned that sometimes keeping things stable is the only way forward. William turns his eyes sharp with pain. Stable, he repeats as if the word is a curse. My mother died trying to live true to herself, Kate. She didn't choose stability. She chose truth. And now I'm wondering, what am I doing, living for whom? For Dad, for the public, or for myself? The room falls silent save for the crackling fire and their heavy breathing. Kate opens her mouth to speak but hesitates. She sees William, the husband, who's always been steady and dependable, standing before her, with a deep crack in his soul. She wants to hold him, to pull him back to reality, but for the first time she knows there's a part of him she can't reach. William picks up the letter, folds it, and slips it into his pocket. I need time to think, he says, his voice barely above a whisper. He walks out, leaving Kate alone by the fire. She watches his retreating figure, her heart heavy. She loves William, their family, this kingdom. But for the first time, she wonders if that love is enough to hold him. In Clarence House's dark hallway, William clutches the letter in his pocket, feeling his heart torn in two. On one side is Diana, with her fire of compassion and truth. On the other is Kate with duty and stability. He doesn't know which path he'll choose, but one thing is clear: he can't keep living as he has. Late at night in Clarence House, the room is shrouded in darkness, lit only by the faint blue glow of a phone screen on William's desk. After the tense talk with Kate, he's locked himself in here. Diana's letter still in his pocket, a smoldering ember in his heart. He tries to focus on papers for tomorrow's audience, but his mind drifts, pulled back to his mother's words. The phone's sudden ring shatters the silence. The screen displays a name William didn't expect: Harry. William hesitates, his finger hovering over the answer button. The brothers haven't spoken directly in ages, their contact reduced to brief, polite texts, like strangers bound by history. Harry's life in California, free, loud, controversial, feels like another world far from the cold palace William inhabits. But tonight something urges him to pick up. Harry, he says, his voice hoarse, it's late. On the other end, Harry's voice is warm but tentative. Will, how are you? Did you get it? The letter. William freezes, his grip tightening on the phone. What do you mean, Mum's letter? Harry exhales as if shedding a weight. Yeah. You got one too, didn't you? Same day. Mum's lawyer sent me a letter today. Have you read yours? William's heart pounds. He pulls out a chair and sits, needing an anchor to process this. Yeah, I read it, he replies, his voice softening. She wrote about compassion, about choosing what's right. What about yours? Harry pauses, and William can picture his brother, red hair, tousled eyes, full of emotion, sitting somewhere in Montecito, an ocean away. Pretty similar, Harry says. She told me not to let the world make me forget who I am. She said, she wants me to live a life I can be proud of, throne or no throne. The call grows intimate, not bitter like past arguments, but touching the hidden corners of their souls. William closes his eyes, letting Harry's voice pull him back to old days, when they were boys racing through Kensington's gardens, when Diana hugged them and shared stories of the world beyond the palace. I miss her, William blurts out, his voice breaking. I miss how she made everything simple. She always knew what was right. Harry chuckles softly, a sound both sad and sincere. That was Mum. But Will, have you ever thought how we're living? I left it all live free, but they call me a traitor. You stayed doing everything they want. But are you happy? Harry's words sting, not because they're harsh, but because they expose a truth Williams avoided. I don't have a throne, Harry continues, but I've kept my promise to Mum to live true to myself. What about you? Will, Harry's question hangs in the air, heavy like an accusation. William opens his eyes, staring into the darkness outside. He wants to argue, to say he's fulfilling his duty, that he has no choice. But deep down, he knows Harry's right. He's lived like a machine, following Charles's expectations, Kate's hopes, the kingdom's demands. But his heart, the part that belongs to Diana, is slowly emptying. I don't know, Harry, William finally admits, his voice a whisper. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. But Mum's letter, it makes me feel like she's still here, still caring for us in her own way. Harry is quiet for a moment, then says softly, she always did that, didn't she? Even gone, she finds a way to bring us together. The call ends soon after with no promises or plans, just a fragile connection restored. William sits there, phone in hand, his mind flooded with images of his mother. He thinks of Harry, the brother who chose a controversial but honest path. Then he thinks of himself, the heir to the throne, yet lost in his own palace. William pulls Diana's letter from his pocket, opening it again. Her final words, choose the path that lets you look at me without shame, etch themselves into his mind. For the first time, he feels a spark of hope, a quiet resolve. His mother sent this letter to both her sons, a reminder they're not alone. And maybe it's time for him to find his own path. The morning at Westminster Abbey is steeped in solemnity. Hundreds gather, politicians, philanthropists, and the public, for the annual memorial of Princess Diana, an event made especially poignant this year, marking 28 years since her passing. Light streams through vibrant stained glass windows, casting shimmering patterns on the marble floor. William, in an elegant black suit, sits in the front row beside Kate, George, Charlotte, and Louis. Camilla and Charles, though present, sit further back, their eyes discreetly watching the air. William clutches the speech notes in his hand, but his heart is elsewhere. Diana's letter, now in his coat pocket, burns like a silent flame, urging him forward. After the call with Harry, after sleepless nights of reflection, he's made a choice today. He won't just honor his mother. He'll revive her legacy. As the MC introduces him, the crowd applauds, but William steps to the podium with an unusual calm, not the calm of a prince, but of a son ready to face the world. He sets the prepared speech aside, ignoring the carefully crafted words of his advisors. The crowd murmurs, sensing something momentous. William takes a deep breath, his gaze briefly meeting Kate's. She watches him, her brows slightly furrowed, then begins. Today we gather to remember my mother, Princess Diana. His voice rings out, clear and emotional. But I'm not here just to speak of what she did. I'm here to speak of what she wanted us to carry on. He pauses, pulling Diana's letter from his pocket and holding it up for all to see. The murmurs grow louder, cameras flash relentlessly. My mother left me this letter, delivered to me this year. In it, she reminds me of compassion, of the courage to choose what's right, no matter how hard. She didn't want me to be just the heir to the throne. She wanted me to be her son, someone who carries her heart to the world. The crowd falls silent, drawn into his words. Kate grips Charlotte's hand, her eyes wavering between pride and worry. Camilla, seated behind, clutches the armrest tightly. William continues, his voice growing stronger. I've lived my life by expectations of the monarchy, the public, myself. But today I choose a different path. For my mother and for what she believed, I announce the creation of the Diana Foundation for Kindness and Justice, an independent organization separate from the monarchy to support the forgotten, those who need a hand, as she once did. The hall erupts in applause, though not all is approval. Some wipe tears, moved by Diana's memory. Others whisper, stunned by William's audacity. The media, like ravenous wolves, capture every moment, ready to fuel a news storm. William ends his speech with a final line, his voice breaking. My mother said to choose the path that lets me look at her without shame. Today I choose that path. As he steps down, the crowd rises in applause, but within the royal circle, a palace earthquake begins. Kate looks at William, her face a mix of shock and unease. She's proud of his courage but fears the consequences. Camilla, her eyes icy, murmurs to an aide. Charles, though frail, can't hide the anger in his gaze, not for Diana's mention, but for William's public challenge to royal order. Outside the hall, the world ignites. Major outlets like BBC, The Guardian, and Sky News run sensational headlines. William breaks royal tradition, Diana Foundation, the heir's declaration of war. On social media, Diana legacy and William speaks trend globally. Some hail William as the people's hero, likening him to Diana. Others brand him a rebel, accusing him of weakening the monarchy. The public is split, and Buckingham Palace becomes the epicenter of an unprecedented media storm. In a quiet room after the ceremony, William stands alone gazing out a window. The applause echoes in his mind, but he knows the cost of his actions. Kate enters, saying nothing, only placing a hand on his shoulder. It's a gesture of comfort, but also a reminder the road ahead won't be easy. William turns, meeting her eyes. "I had to do this, Kate," he says, his voice soft but firm. "For Mum, for me." A fine drizzle falls over the lush fields surrounding Sandringham House, the royal retreat from prying eyes. Inside, the air is thick, heavy, as the storm brewing outside. William stands in the grand drawing room, the fireplace's glow illuminating his face, a face etched with resolve and pain. Across from him, King Charles III, in a thick wool sweater, sits in an armchair, his gaunt hands gripping the armrests. His health has visibly declined, but his eyes remain sharp, filled with anger and disappointment. This meeting was arranged immediately after William's shocking speech at Diana's memorial. The media frenzy continues with headlines like "Prince William defies the throne" and "Diana's Foundation rebellion or redemption." Charles, though rarely intervening directly, summoned William to Sandringham not as father and son, but as a king confronting a wayward heir. Charles speaks first, his voice raspy but cold. "William, what do you think you're doing? You stood before the world brandishing your mother's letter, announcing an independent organization without royal approval. Do you realize how much you've weakened us?" He pauses, coughing, but his gaze never wavers. "I've spent my life keeping this monarchy intact, and now you're tearing it apart." William stands tall, hands clasped behind his back, suppressing a wave of emotion. He knew this confrontation was inevitable, but his father's words still sting. "Dad," he says, his voice low but steady, "I don't want to destroy anything. I just want to do what Mum taught me, to live for what's right. The Diana Foundation isn't against the monarchy. It's to save its soul, so we're not just empty symbols." Charles lets out a dry, bitter laugh. "Soul. You talk of soul, but do you see the consequences? The public is divided, the media is attacking, and the advisors are in panic. Do you think your mother would want this a kingdom in chaos because of your impulsiveness?" He leans forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I order you to retract it. Cancel that foundation. Return to your role, a proper heir." Charles's words are a wall, but this time William doesn't back down. He steps closer, kneeling so their eyes meet levelly. "Dad," he says, his voice breaking, but strong, "I've lived my whole life by your expectations. I've done everything you wanted, speeches, tours, smiles for the cameras. But my heart isn't there. My heart belongs to Mum, to what she believed. I can't keep living as your shadow." The room falls silent, save for the crackling fire and the rain tapping the windows. Charles looks at William, and for the first time his eyes hold not just anger, but a flicker of pain. He remembers Diana, her radiant smile, her fragile heart, and the times she defied him for what she thought was right. William, with this resolve, is more like her than he ever realized. But Charles can't admit that. Not now, when he feels the throne slipping from his grasp. "You don't understand," William Charles says at last, his voice frail, almost pleading. "I did everything for you, for George, for the monarchy's future. If you break it, what will you leave for your son?" William shakes his head, tears silently falling. "I don't want to leave George an empty throne. I want to leave a legacy, one Mum would be proud of, and one day George will be too." William rises, wiping his tears. He looks at his father, the man who once defined his world, now a frail figure. "I'm sorry, Dad," he says, his voice soft but certain, "but I have to follow my path." He turns walking out, leaving Charles alone with the rain and unspoken thoughts. As the door closes, Charles lowers his head, his hands trembling on the armrests. He says nothing, but in his heart a silent shift occurs. Not the throne, but a spirit, Diana's spirit, now alive in the son he tried to mold in his image. Charles knows, though he disagrees, William has become the man he could never be. Outside, the rain continues, but as William steps from Sandringham, he feels an odd relief. The road ahead will be treacherous, but for the first time he knows he's on the right path. The media storm following William's speech at Westminster Abbey shows no signs of abating. London's streets, from noisy pubs to sleek newsrooms, buzz with debate. At Clarence House, William stands by the drawing room window, gazing at the misty garden. The BBC News on the TV replays the moment he held up Diana's letter in the Abbey. But William doesn't feel heroic. He feels burdened, torn between his mother's ideals and his family's responsibilities. Kate, seated on the sofa, folds a newspaper, her expression a mix of worry and reflection. Will she, says, her voice soft but earnest. I've thought a lot about what you did. At first I feared you were risking everything the monarchy, our family. But I see now, you're not fighting the monarchy. You're trying to save it in your mother's way. William turns, surprised by the shift in her tone. She steps closer, placing a hand on his shoulder, a gesture both comforting and resolute. I don't want to lose you to the past, she says, her eyes shining with sincerity. But I see your mother in you, and I want to stand by you no matter how hard this path is. William takes her hand, a weight lifting from his heart. Thank you, Kate, he whispers. I need you more than ever. The official launch of the Diana Foundation for Kindness and Justice takes place in a grand London hall, attended by hundreds of activists, those Diana once helped and more. William steps to the podium in a navy suit, his mother's sapphire ring gleaming on his finger. The crowd hushes as he begins, his voice resonant, powerful, and emotional. I am not just the heir to the throne, he says, his gaze sweeping the room. I am the son of a mother who was forgotten. Today I don't claim the throne, I claim my mother's heart. My mother believed one act of kindness could change the world, he continues. This foundation isn't mine alone. It belongs to everyone who believes in kindness as she did. As he finishes, the hall erupts in applause, tears streaming down many faces. The media, though divided, can't deny the power of the moment. Charles is absent, his frail health keeping him at Buckingham. But that morning, a letter arrives for William bearing a single handwritten line, I don't agree, but I'm proud. William reads it, his heart tightening. It's not full approval, but it's the closest to love his father can offer. He tucks the letter away, feeling a circle close. Legacy is living so those we've lost can still smile. Somewhere Diana is surely smiling. Like, share and subscribe to spread the moving story of Diana's legacy and William's journey.